Good morning, everybody, from the wonderful city of Rome, Italy. Christina and I obviously got here a little bit early this morning. We are in St. Peter's Square, one of the most beautiful places in all of Rome, perhaps even in the world. And the reason I wanted to do a quick little video on this is because you look at all the wonderful architecture that's surrounding us, but in the very center of all of this is this large obelisk. It stands about 83 feet tall, weighs 866 metric tons, which is almost 1,000,000 pounds, so it's a lot of weight. What's interesting is this was made about 1850 BC, before Christ. And what's fascinating about it is there's no hieroglyphics written on it whatsoever, so we don't know why the Egyptians actually made it. But we do know this: in the year 37 AD, the Emperor Caligula actually had this shipped over from Egypt to Rome. Now, in this vicinity is where it originally stood, but of course, Caligula had his circus built here in this area, and then later on you can see that everything was built on top of that. But this is where the gladiatorial games would have taken place, a lot of them. This is where chariot races would have taken place. Of course, you had Circus Maximus on the other side of the city, which was just enormous. I think over 80,000 people plus could be seated in there. But what's fascinating about this is the history that has been seen by this stone. Oftentimes when I come here and I see this, I think of what Jesus said in the Gospels. In his last week that he was living, as he's coming in from Bethany to Jerusalem, he's riding on a donkey, and his disciples are shouting out, "Hosanna, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." And of course, some of the Pharisees and the religious rulers at the time, tell Jesus' disciples to stop saying that. Jesus says, "I tell you, if they stop saying that, the stones will cry out." And I think of what this is seen, if this stone could only talk, what it could tell us. Because in the year 64 AD, the Emperor Nero, during his reign and rule, a great fire broke out in the city. And what happened was, the blame was shifted onto Nero. Well, he had to basically reshift that to someone else. So he blamed it on a small group of people known as Christians at the time. Now, these Christians were succumbed to horrendous tortures under Nero. Around the year 66 AD, a couple years after that, we know that Peter was crucified here. But some of the worst tortures that ever took place right in this spot, in where the circus lied. And the writer Cornelius Tacitus tells us about these things. He tells us that the Christians, a small group of people, were tortured for their religious beliefs, believing that Jesus Christ had risen from the dead, who was crucified under the prefect Pontius Pilate. But what's interesting about this as well is, at the very apex of it, Nero designed a pulley system. And what he did was, with the pulley system, he would pull Christians up to the top of it. Men, women, and children hooked on hooks, and he would release them and drop them to the ground almost 100 feet to their deaths. So this stone has seen so much history, it's amazing. It's one of 13 obelisks that are in the city of Rome, and the only one that has ever survived all the fires and the wars that have taken place throughout history. So it's really a rich piece of history that we're looking at.